Hi friends, it's Michelle. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to the Lover's Eye video series. I'm so glad that you're here and I really appreciate your support and viewership. This is the second tutorial video in the series. The first one is on my channel now, as well as the introduction. The introduction gives you a history of the Lover's Eyes and some information about the kits that we're using. It's a great place to start. The video 1 does a whole bunch of different lover's eyes that we do with jewelry and other items. And today we're going to do a second batch using some things that we might use more commonly in junk journals on junk journal covers, as well as exploring what lover's eyes would look like with a watch, which is really, really cool. Before I start, I want to give a big thank you to Heather Buchel. I hope I'm saying your last name right, Heather. She is a artist who does photography and she works a lot in paper. She makes journals and cards. But what I'm thanking her for is she's also a talented composer. And the music that I use on the intro and on the back end of the video and over and under some of the parts that I'm creating in are all her composition, a song called Fallen, and she has a channel full of songs. So I just wanted to thank her personally and tell you if you're interested in her music, you can find all the links to her in the box below. I love to support other paper artists, other artists like myself that are just trying to get our stuff out there in the world. And I feel like it's important we support each other. So I appreciate her lending me the music for my video series. And of course, I would love for you to follow her on Instagram and on YouTube. So with that, let's get started. So we're going to start first with just a general book plate, right? I have two book plates of different sizes. One's just a little bit bigger than this one here. And I've already found the eyes I want for them. And I just want to show you how easy it is to make. I think it's kind of common sense how we're going to make these, but I'm going to do them really quick on camera, and then I'll show you how they look on a book. And because the first video went over so many of the basics of how to make a lover's eye, how to use the dimensional magic, and how I do the gluing and the spreading, I figure I will just really speed this video up and give you the highlights of how I make some more simple lover's eyes for books. So I'm going to cut out the eyes to fit the back of the book plate. And where yesterday I would do the dimensional magic and glue the item from the front, book plates have that little space to slip paper in and out, so it won't work as well doing it that way. So with book plates, I glue from the back first, and then I will do the resin on the top after. And those little holes that you can see on the side where you usually would use like nail heads are the only place I can really think to really jazz it up. So in this particular case, I'm taking a red cover and I'm going to show you that I have these little red gems, some red heat set gems, and I'm just going to use those as alternates to like nail heads. And I think it looks really great. It just really gives it that little extra bit, and I think it looks so sharp on a cover. Now here I'll show you what just plain nail heads or screw heads would look like. You can use just cut off the top of brads. I have these little already brass ones, but in the end, I fool around with some different colors just to show you how different a little bit of pop of color can be on these book plates, especially if you're using a blue cover or to bring out the color of the eyes. But on this one, I really do like the red, so I'm just going to glue those on. And it's really as simple as that. The only step left, which I don't have to do on camera, is put the resin or the dimensional magic in, because you've already seen me do that so many times. And in this particular case, I'm just going to use the plain nail heads on this project, and it's really super simple and super plain. And if I wanted to zhuzh it up just a little bit, I can run a bead of 3-in-1 glue on the top, and then pour the micro beads on the top of the book plate, and that will be enough to make it interesting and different. I mean, really, just the eyes are striking, and just adding a little extra element might make it a little bit more traditional lover's eye, but you don't have to do any of this. I'm just getting the micro beads out there. So in the end, if you do use micro beads, I like to put a little coating of Dimensional Magic on the top and fill in the blanks just so that it's sturdy. And of course, you don't have to do any of that. You could just take a lover's eye or an eye and put it in a regular book plate and keep it as plain paper. It's really up to you. I think that these are super effective on books and really, really easy to make and a little bit mysterious. Another idea I had was taking an old luggage tag and putting an eye in it, and then taking labels. These are from Tracy Fox. One of my favorite kits of hers is these like basic labels. And I'm just going to ink the edges and glue on a little tiny collaged label layer area. This is a little bit more mixed media ish. It's not as straightforward. And I just like the idea of taking these red line labels and layering them on this luggage tag and, inking them, gluing them, and just making it a little bit more interesting. Like anybody can throw an eye in a luggage tag and that would look great and interesting, but this just adds just another little mixed media kind of feel to it. So I'm just going to play around with placement and gluing. And as I'm doing this, I want to show you that it's even a plain tag can just go from nothing to something really interesting very, very easily. And old luggage tags you can find, gosh, everywhere. You could even make your own if you wanted to. So I'm just trimming it out now and inking it. And I want you to look at it plain because I think this is enough as it is. Like this is a cool little element as it is. And I could definitely run a brad through the top of the luggage tag and make it sort of a tag that could go up and down on a page. But I decide I want to make it a little bit more mixed media-ish. So I'm going to get some oxide inks and I'm going to really grunge it up. And what you didn't see off camera is I cleaned up all of the glue that was on the edge. And now I'm just taking the mix of the oxide inks and I'm just kind of squishing it on and putting it on my finger and just grunging up the tag. Now, you may have preferred it the way it was without any of this grunge. And it's really just up to you and it's up to what project you're putting it with. Another thing I like to do is take book plates and make them more dreamy. So I'm thinking of this like a fairy tale book plate. And do you see how I'm pointing out the flowers around her face? That's sort of a nod to the Victorian times where they used flowers to express things, to have double meanings. And I did see a few lovers' eyes that did have like ivy and flowers. And, it went all with whatever the message of the lover's eye was. So there's a few of those in my kit. And I'm showing you some antiquing cream. And I just painted this brass book plate with antiquing cream. And now I'm rubbing some of it off. And I did that because I didn't like it to be so shiny brass. I thought this would make it more interesting and vintage looking. But I also thought it brought out the blue and green in this little lover's eye that I did. And now I'm just putting dots of glue only in the centers of the flowers and then in a few choice places. And then I'm sprinkling really fine glitter on it. And you can see how sparkly it becomes. I really love that effect. And behind this brass plate, it's going to look very magical. I just wipe all the glitter off from the areas that I don't want it in, and I glue it in back. And then, of course, the next step will just be to add the resin, which I'm going to add to, well, not resin, but the Dimensional Magic. And I'm just going to spread it around on the center of the eye. Some people have already commented in the comments, can they use glossy accents? I believe you can. That's just another product very similar to this. And if you know how to use resin, use that. But now I have this dreamy fairy tale plate. I'm also going to show you that you can make cool little book plates out of slides. You can use the Kodachrome cardboard slides from the 70s, or these little metal ones that I found at an estate sale are really cool too. And I'm going to do exactly what I did with the luggage tag, which is make a little collaged, not collaged, but little layered labels on top of it. Again, just to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more three-dimensional, and fit more into that junk journal vibe. I think this would look really cool in a page layout, on the front of a signature, on the cover of a book. You know, just another junk journal detail like we all love. We all love these funky little things that we can add into our journals. I think it's funky cool. So now we're going to talk about watches, which I think are really fascinating to make into lover's eyes. So here's a watch, just a basic silver watch that I have created a lover's eye in. And all that's in there is an eye and a little bit of glitter. And because of the way that this watch is encrusted, I find it to be a super interesting lover's eye. And what I like the idea of is if it was on a small journal, it could be the closure that slips on. Let me see if I can find an example. Let's look at this little brown journal, this little antique brown book. This is obviously a book, not a journal, but we can make journals this size and we can definitely make them look old. And maybe you even have a little book that you could cut apart and make a journal. And then this could slip over like this. And that could be the closure. Isn't that like so cool, right? And then you can just slip it on and off. And if there was some decoration back here that really highlighted that, maybe a strip of fabric or a beautiful antique ribbon in the back, wouldn't that just be beautiful? I love the idea of using this as a closure. So having said that, you know, I went through some old watches, right? And I just popped off the back with a screwdriver or a small tool. And then I popped the insides out. And of course I'm going to keep the insides because they're wicked cool and to be used for some kind of other project. I mean, look at, you can take a little watch face and hang sprockets and gears off of them. But I took all the centers out. And what ended up happening is I have all these shells of watches that now can be used to make lover's eyes, right? And of course you want to make sure you don't have any gold watches. We don't want anything valuable. You want to make sure you're using something that is not that valuable. And then once you have the two pieces, you're going to simply cut out an eye that you like, and you're going to fit it inside the piece that goes in the back. So in this case, this eye actually can be pressed right into the back. So I'm going to leave it blank, but you could always put a little glitter inside of here, or you know, a little jewel in the iris or on the corner of the eye might be super cool. Actually, that might be really cool on here. And I found some more jewels in my stash, and one of them had teeny tiny jewels. Now, are they teeny tiny enough for this? I do not know. But let's see what I have here. Let's put it in the watch and see how it looks. Well, it does catch the eye, so maybe I'll leave that in there. I'm going to pop it in. Well, no, I'm not. I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to work on the case. So what I thought I might do for the case is I have a little bag of teeny tiny gears. I don't think these are real. I think these are from a craft store, although I have bought real ones from a flea market, and I just showed you all those insides of a watch, and there's probably some in there, but I like the fact that these are tri-colored. And what I was thinking I would do, put some 3-in-1 glue on it. And then I thought I'd pick up some gears and try to place them in the glue. Sort of a little steampunk type look, but they have to be so tiny. Do you see how I'm putting that in the glue? Maybe I'll put one down here. Let's see. Maybe a little silver one on top. Again, as I've said, this is so hard to do on camera. I am seriously struggling on camera because I'm looking through a lens instead of, and there's a little bit of sticky glue there. Maybe I'll put a little of those balls to fill in on the glue to make it a little bit more sparkly. Let's see. Let's see what will stick. Although it does blend it a little bit. I don't know if you can see. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but you can take a pokey tool and get rid of the ones you don't like. Like, I like the ones in here, but I don't like the ones at the bottom. So in other words, I like the ones in the gear spokes, but not the ones hanging onto the gear. This also gives me the ability to press it into the glue and make it more secure. It's a little bit steampunk, and I might be able to add some more beads now where I want them. I'm going to use the Dimensional Magic for that. It's a little bit more accurate. This case is just so boring. Right, this watch case is so boring. It's not like it looks good at all. I'm just going to put a bead here, and a little bead of glue there, and I don't think I'm going to use gold this time. I think I'm going to use the copper. And honestly, I don't even know how I thought this up. I think I was just going through all my jewelry and I found the watches and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And that's the fun part. It's about looking at what you have and being inspired by what you have. I think that looks very steampunk and very cool. And I'm going to let both pieces dry. And then I'm going to pop the eye in and we'll see how it looks. So now this watch is all dry. And I'm going to pop the eye into the back. I'm going to pop the back into the casing. see if I can bring it in this way. So I like how the gears kind of come into the glass part, and when you turn it, you see more of the eye. Now, you could wear something like this. I mean, what an unusual piece of jewelry that would be, right? Very unusual. But again, it can also be a clasp on a small journal or a book. Right? Isn't that interesting? Doesn't quite fit. But we could make a journal to fit that size, or somehow this could be added to the book and then just cut here, or however it is you want to do it. Like, you know, it's just, to me, super cool. So that's a watch. The last kind of watch that I made is a faux pocket watch. I made a circular lover's eye with decorative microbeads, and I just simply cut it to size in one of those faux pocket watches you can buy from the craft store. I think it is really cool, very romantic, but it's kind of too shiny for me. So I take that antiquing cream that I showed you earlier with the book plate, and I just put some on the edge with my fingers, and then I add some gilding wax. And one of the things I did off camera was, once that dried, I added some clear base nail polish to it so that it didn't rub off after. This one's pretty straightforward, and with all the other information I gave you, I don't think you need step-by-step instructions on that one. Okay, so now that you have all the basic supplies and information on how to make lover's eyes, let's revisit all those things I pulled from my stash in video 1 to make my projects with. Most of these you did not see on camera, and I want to show you the full collection, and hopefully it will inspire you to look at your own stash and make your own collection of lover's eyes. Let's go over and take a peek now. First, I'm going to start with a basic cabochon. I'm going to shield my window. Hopefully you can see better. And there's the image of the eye in the background. And then I have all sorts of mica put in there, different color mica chips. And then I've encrusted the sides sort of loosely with these little metal balls. And I think that looks really cool. And I can envision this hanging off of a back of a bookmark, off a spine of a book, or using it as a dangle charm. I just really love it. And this was my first basic design. Moving on, the second really basic design was repurposing these old pieces of jewelry I already had and putting, so these little pearls, these were nothing, right? These were just base metal pins, gold tone. I don't even think they were gold filled. And just putting some, what I think would be a really nice lover's eye in the center, and using the dimensional magic to create the coating. And in this one, I put a little gem right in the corner of the eye to replicate either a tear or even just that little glint that you get sometimes, that little glint of light that comes from the eye, in the corner of the eye. So these, I think, would be really cool on the front of a journal, to wear on a scarf, to put a really cool wrap around a journal and pin this in. I mean, I just love them. And I love repurposing, you know, costume jewelry that you can get for maybe $1 or $2. Speaking of that, and let me put them down as I show them to you. Where did I put the other one? There's the cabochon. Okay. Speaking of that, I have this service pin from a company, AO, which I almost didn't do this one because AO is where my grandparents worked, and But then I realized I was making it precious. And what I did is I put 3 little jewels on top of where it said AO. And then I cut the eye so you can still see it's open here. And that's a little repurposed service pin that I made into a lover's eye. Now, the last one I made from a repurposed antique version is an antique pin. It's probably from turn of the century. I'm going to put it around 1910. And it's just base metal. It's pot metal. It's nothing worth anything, but it has beautiful details on it. And I simply put a lover's eye in and then put that coating, that like resin coating on top. And I will actually wear this one. I will love wearing this one with a scarf. I think it's going to be a beautiful conversation piece. And I'm really happy I made this into something. I took something old and something modern and made it my own. And this will go into my jewelry box and I will wear this one. So now a few other unusual things I did. I took watches, old watches, and I made them into lover's eyes. This one needed nothing, almost nothing done to it. I put a little bit of glitter. I don't know if you can see, maybe in the light. I put a little sheen of glitter in just so that when the light hits it right, it will pick up on it. Another watch I did is really just costume. It's nothing. It's even worn. It was probably gold tone, gold and silver tone, and it's worn down quite a bit, but it does fit me. And I put the eye in. So this eye I did sideways, and this eye I did up and down. And I added some glitter in it again to catch the light. And this one I can wear and would really be cool to wear on certain days like Friday the 13th and the Ides of March. Get it? And Halloween and things like that. I just think it's a really funky piece. And there's a little tiny like, like a crystal diamond here, and this one fell out. So I don't know if you can see, I replaced it with a different little gem I had. And I mean, again, this is just fun jewelry, so I'm not getting myself too worked up about it. So now I'm thinking more along the lines of other jewelry I can wear or I can tuck into a textile of a journal, either on a page or on a cover. And I was able to create these stick pins that have a little charm hanging from them. And really, I love the idea of just using a regular, this is just a pendant, right? It's supposed to hang this way, but by hanging it down and just a little off the side, I attached it to a stick pin back and just added a little charm. Now again, I'm using what I have. I'm not getting too precious or ridiculous about it, trying to make it too fussy. I don't know if you can see, I added those little gold, and I don't even want to call it glitter. They're like teeny tiny gold balls all on the outside of it. So that gives it like a gold and silver tone, a little bit more bejeweled. Now this is gold. This is like a antiqued silver. This is sterling. This is very bright silver. All the metals don't match. I'm not getting worked up about it because this is just a project for my journals. But if I wanted to, let's say, sell a few of these or make them, I would definitely buy matching metals and charms that really were a lot better than this. And what a great little gift and project you could make. So this is the first one I made. And then the second one I made, I used bronze. And one, as I've mentioned, I really like using eyes from all different colors, skin tones, and different color eyes. I want the person behind the jewel to be mysterious, but I also want to include all different types of people. So this, if I had a copper base, that would have looked a little better, but I don't, and that's okay, because I'm probably going to stick this in a textile in a journal. So this part won't show too much. And I could always color the base here with some alcohol inks if I wanted it to match. And I have this sort of hooded dark eye with a little heart charm hanging down. And I used copper balls around the edge. So those are a couple stick pins. Then I kind of started, okay, so with this same bezel, just a cheap little bezel from a craft store, I made this one. And this one is more of a sad feel. It's got a tear in the eye and a gathering of tears on the bottom. And I just used the tiniest crystal seed beads for this. And I could picture this hanging on a tag, a large tag with something, maybe a poem or something behind it, or some kind of phrase that's more melancholy and bittersweet, maybe something about grief. But this was just playing around, and again with a different eye. Now recycling some things I had those huge Czech Republic like base metal pieces, right, that were just pressed. I added some of those little balls around the edge. I used some gilding wax and some patina paste, and I just made it different. And I could picture this on the front of a journal that had a really nice like bluish cover or gold edges, like a very regal cover to a journal. And you know, it was just really fun to transform this piece of ugly 1970s pressed gold tone jewelry into something really interesting for the cover of a book. In fact, if I have a cover of a journal somewhere, let's use this color. Isn't that interesting? I could see like a textile coming behind the back of it, and maybe some beautiful spine cloth. Really pretty. It'd be a really pretty accent to a book. I'll keep this out, even though it's not the prettiest of books. And let's try this one. Again, same thing. It's one of those base metal pieces. And I encrusted it with those little beads. And there were these little flowers. I don't know if you can see them. They were supposed to have a gem in each one. Well, I don't have those gems, nor do I have the time. So I put a little dot of glue in each one of those and then shook the little beaded, you know, those little blue beads. And I think they make great centers to the flower and a really fabulous front to a journal. I have this little photo album. Right? Isn't that cool? I mean, that is just so awesome to me. Let's try that other one. See what a difference that makes, right? Putting it on an antique photo album cover or an antique book cover that's already gilded, it just looks so intriguing and cool. Put that aside. Now, I had some really inexpensive embellishments. I think I showed you the ones from Walmart, the old Christmas decorations that I got for like 25 cents. I made a journal cover embellishment out of that by placing those little beads, or you could use glitter or whatever, in a line opposing opposite each other, but going this way on the diamond. And again, look how effective that is. Last but not least, I had ordered these wooden bezels, and this one I just made with that a darker eye, and I encrusted it with copper and gold glitter, the kind of rough cut glitter. And I picture it as like a bookmark on the back of a book. Isn't that intriguing on a bookshelf? I think that is a really cool visual. And the last little one that I've made off camera is one of those faux watch cases, and I've encrusted it with tons of mica chips, and a little jewel in the corner of the eye. And I put 4 little gems here, and I thought this would be wonderful on a very romantic travel journal to show that this person is with the traveler in time and in all 4 directions, no matter where they go. And again, these are just all my little treasures that I made using inspiration, going through my boxes of stuff. I mean, some of these pieces of jewelry were mine. They were, like a family member's when I cleaned out their house. They were just going to go in the dumpster. I found them at estate sales. These little pieces here, I purchased with the lover's eye in mind, like over the last couple of years when I've, been at an estate sale and saw like an old jewelry box full of stuff, flea markets, things like that. You can pick these up for $1 or $2. The flea market where I bought a whole bunch of these little Christmas ornaments that have frames on them. Just be creative. They're just so fun to make. I mean, some of these were just the most fun to make. I'd actually stop and say, I'm just having a ball, because it was so creative and so fun. And I think that it's just so cool. What do you think? So we just covered how to make lover's eyes in the last 2 videos, and hopefully you feel confident with that. And moving forward, the next part of this video series will be me making an actual lover's eye journal. I cannot wait. I can't wait to delve in and use some of these things we've made and some imagery and make a really dreamy, romantic journal. And I hope you'll tune in for that. I hope you'll like. I hope you'll subscribe. And I cannot wait to see you again. I'm giddy just thinking about what we're going to make. So until then, I hope that you will get to your work table and stay crafty. And I will see you very, very soon. Bye.